so last but not least, we're going to draw a three-quarter view. So three-quarter view is a little bit harder, right? Because now the head is turned. So again, we'll start with the cranium. And, we're going to kind of want to figure out, three-dimensionally, like if you look at a sphere, right, it's going to have sort of the lines through it. And, then we're going to kind of think about the bottom part, right? So this is where I was talking about like foundational shapes, right? So you have this cylinder, right? And then you have the sphere. And then you kind of have to figure out, how are you going to draw those lines through the sphere. So you want that center line, right? So you want to figure out where that center line is, and you want to figure out, where that area right below the center line is to start drawing, the eyes and all the other things, right? So you can kind of project those curves over from the other drawings, but they are going to kind of have these sort of this effect where they curve around the shape, right? So you're going to curve the mouth around, you're going to curve the chin around. All those things are going to kind of curve around three-dimensionally, and you're going to have to kind of adjust the proportion. So if you remember our perspective drawings, this is like that. It's a lot more complicated. But once you've generalized all those shapes, you can kind of figure out where's that line intersecting, and then you just kind of curve it around the surface. Same thing, like so with the temples, now those are going to become sort of three-dimensional. We're going to look at the all the various shapes, right? So let's start with the eyes. The eyes are the easiest ones to start with. So remember, the eye line is here. We're going to draw this line at the very top of the eye, right? So you draw those orbital shapes there, right? So those are the orbital shapes. And so you're starting to see like the shape of a skull, right? Because I already drew the cranium, and I drew the face, the jaw part, and the eyes, and even the temple, right? So you might have to make some adjustments there to make sure everything's in there. And then you could start looking at the other facial features like the nose. So the nose is going to sit here, and by looking at my other drawings, I can kind of figure out where the nose is. So I'm going to see more of this here than here. And in the perspective part is like figuring out where the vanishing points happening. So you don't have to go all the way and draw a vanishing point and do it, but just kind of keep that in mind that like these two eyes, the one closer to the viewing plane is going to be larger than the one farther away. And so like our lips, coming across, those kind of things, they're going to get smaller, right? So you want to kind of keep that in mind when you're drawing the lips, right? And you're drawing all the other features. You want to make sure that the lips are kind of coming closer to the viewing plane and getting further away. So you can kind of do that by setting up all your individual construction lines there, and then you have the chin. And so it's somewhere between these two drawings, right? If you look at them, the nose is not in complete profile, but we are seeing some aspects of it that we won't see from both drawings, right? So you're seeing a little bit of profile and a little bit of the other aspects of that nose. And obviously the further nostril is going to be smaller and hidden behind the nose a little bit than the farther one, or the farther one hidden behind and smaller than the one closer to the camera in this case. So and then you could kind of start looking at things like the cheeks, this part of the face. So the cheek has a profile, when we contour around the face. So you're going to notice these more when you're actually drawing from an actual person, or from an actual, in the mirror looking at yourself. Those things are easier to observe when you're looking at a subject than when you just kind of draw it here. But this is a kind of a way to just kind of imagine where all the parts are. And so we do this automatically when we look at a person, right? We're automatically doing an analysis. So if you ever seen a drawing, or if you ever been in a situation where you've seen an artificial human, whether it's a mannequin or a video game character or something like that, you'll always notice that there's something off. And so if it's not proportional, that's the first thing, right? If the proportions are not right, that's the first thing you notice. And you don't always know why. I'm like, what's off about this? Oh, well, the character has these giant, anime eyes. That's not believable. Or the character has an extremely small forehead. A lot of people draw like the forehead ending here, and then the character looks like they don't have a brain. So, but then again, there's also the believability aspects of drawings that even if they don't look like real life, they are believable. So, like a cartoon character, whether it's an anime character or not, there are proportions there that are believable and that we relate to. So, even though they might exaggerate certain features, there are some key features in there that we kind of recognize as believable, and so that's what makes the characters real to us. When we see a cartoon character and we see him animated on the screen, well, it makes him believable to us. How do we understand that that character is real? And it's because there's certain proportions, there's certain things that relate to real life in it. So, these are kind of the same, the same sort of principles. Where kind of making, if you want to draw that invisible mask, if that helps you, go right ahead and, kind of look at the eye lines, look at the portrait, and make sure that things are sweeping around right. And then, you can always draw the hair here, depending on how much hair the character has. You can do that, and, make sure that you also are looking at the proportions of the ear. So, the ear kind of comes around here and ends up being sort of another shape itself. There's a sort of this Y shape inside of the ear that we draw, and then and then you can kind of finish this up. So this is kind of, again, we're just trying to figure out proportions here. We're not necessarily trying to do an amazing drawing, but we're trying to understand proportions so that when we go into our other forms of portrait drawing, we can, a lot of times we'll draw stuff and it's like, why doesn't this look right? And, why isn't it, I rendered this nose perfectly. Why does everything else not look right? And it's usually because, just proportions are off. So, as long as we get our proportions right, there'll be something right about the drawing, even if it's not likeness or something like that. The likeness of a character or things like that are going to be based on observation. But these are basically kind of how you can just start drawing a character without really any real reference at all. So hope that helps.